you all for the session on depository system. I am Dr. Dinesh, Assistant Professor, School of Management, Shastra Deemed University, Thanjavur. In this session, I am going to explain about depositories and the depository system in India, the major depositories in India, and the process of dematerialization and rematerialization. The profile of National Securities Depository Limited and Central Depository Service India Limited. In this, first you need to understand the meaning of depository. So what is depository and what are the role performed by the depositories and what are the depository institutions are there in India, and we'll discuss about the depository system. And the meaning of depository, the importance you need to understand, the depository one who going to convert the physical certificate or physical security into a digital security. So that particular process is done by the depositories. It is including the transfer of securities and everything. The process will be taken care by the depositories. So we'll take what is the meaning of depository. A depository is an organization which holds the securities. It is like shares, debentures, bonds, government securities, mutual funds, like the kind of financial instruments, or to be stored or to be held by the depositories. So that is a prime purpose of depository, which is done by the depository for investors in electronic form at the request of the investors through a registered depository participant. It is also provide the services related to the transactions in securities. It is transfer of ownership, the kind of things the depositories are involving. Depositories are not directly offering the service to the investors. Depositories are doing the service, or depositories are rendering the service through the depository participants. So the depository participant is an agent who is going to do the work, is going to bridge the gap between the investor and the depositories. So there are a kind of regulation which is applicable for the depository participant in terms of starting the depository participant and running their business, and the regulation, everything that comes under the regulation of Securities Exchange Board of India. There are a separate act is also governing the operations of depositories, the Depositories Act 1996, also governing that. So in this you need to understand about the meaning of depository. The depository is holding the financial assets of the investors. It is done through the depository participant. So who is depository participant? The depository participant have been registered themselves as a member through the depositories. With the depositories, what we call it as depository participants. What they are doing, depository, the depository is also involving the service, offering the service for the transaction of securities. It is including the shares, debentures, government securities, mutual funds and other related instruments are bought and sold in an electronic form, that is done by the depository. According to Section 2E of Depositories Act 1996, depository means a company formed and registered under the Companies Act 1956 and which has been granted a certificate of registration under Section 12, 1A of Securities and Exchange Board of India Act 1992, which we call it as a depository. A depository is an organization which holds the securities of shareholders in electronic form and facilitates for the transfer of ownership of those securities on the settlement dates. So everything it is become quicker and easier if we are going to use the services of the depositories. So the depository is one who convert the physical certificate into the digital certificate, and holding of digital certificate and as well as for transferring of digital certificate is also done by the depositories. And there is the minimum net worth which is required for the depositories as prescribed by the Securities Exchange Board of India. It is with the minimum net worth of 100 crores which required for the depositories for starting up of their business and running their business in India. At present, you can take, there are 2 depositories are there in India. The depositories are the National Securities Depository Limited and Central Depository Services India Limited, or the registered depositories under SEBI. And these depositories are offering a unique identification number for each securities or to be traded in the market. So for tracking of information, price related information, quantity related information, we'll use this number. This number is called as ISIN number. It means International Securities Identification Number. So it is in worldwide, if you are going to sell this particular securities in the market, there should be a unique identification number is being given by the depositories. So that depositories are giving that number, we call it as ISIN number. So it is a unique 12-digit number, is a combination of alphanumeric identification number allocated for the securities. For example, it is given here INE 383C01018 is given. It is like if the particular security, the issuer of the particular security is located or incorporated in India. So it is in that the first 2 letters it is mentioned as IN. It means for it is incorporated in India, and E what type of instrument that is being sold in that the market, that is being available in that the market, so that the issuer is issued the equity related instrument. So that comes under the E, and they have given the numbers, 3-digit number followed by a alpha number. So which mean for either this particular instrument or a security is a equity fully paid up capital, or the equity with the partially paid up capital, or it is a equity with the differential voting rights are applicable for this, or the dividend rights are applicable, different dividend rights are applicable for this security or mentioned in this, and which is issued, which have the different ISSN number for each category. ISIN number for each category. And need to know about the comparison between the bank and the depository. So bank, depository and analogy is going to explain about the comparison, how we can compare the bank and the depository institution. So first we can take the bank. Banks are holding the funds in the account. Normally whenever we have opened the account with the bank, we are going to make deposit, or we are going to withdrawing that amount from our account. So with that, the banks are maintaining or holding cash or holding funds in the account, normally done by the bank. Similar to this, the depositories are holding the securities in the account. It means either it may be the debt instrument or a government securities, or it may be the equities or a mutual fund schemes, are going to be stored. The digital certificates of those securities are stored in your account, that is to be maintained by the depository. So the bank, compared to that, the bank, the depository is also doing a similar kind of activities from the first example. And the second one, transfer funds between the account on the instruction given by the account holder. This is normally we done. We initiate the fund transfer, electronic fund transfer. We are giving the standard instruction to the banker for automated transaction. So likewise, the kind of things we can also able to do with the depository in terms of transferring of securities. So here we are transferring the funds in bank, whereas in depositories we are transferring the securities. The transfer of securities between the account with an instruction of the BO account holder. It is a beneficial owner account holder. We call it as what? Who is a beneficial account owner holder? Beneficial owner account holder. A person who have opened the account with the depository through its depository participant. What is the account opened by the beneficial owner? Demat account opened by the beneficial owner with their depository participant is being registered with the depository. Through that particular account, the transfer of securities are happened. So it is not going to happen with the other account. There should be a similar kind of account, similar kind of dematerialized account can be transfer the securities, as like as how I am going to transfer the fund from one account to another account in bank. Similar to this, in depositories we can transfer the securities from one account to another account and facilitate transfer without having to handle the money. It is there are facilities are available for transferring the money without having to handle the money. Similar to this, here we have the facility to transfer the ownership without having to handle the securities. We are not going to take the money and going to transfer in the bank. Instead of the digital version, digital money we can transfer from one account to another account. The kind of facility is available. Through that, the internet banking you can initiate for the NEFT or RTGS or IMBS, through which you can be able to transfer the funds. The funds are digitally transferred without handling the money. Without I am going to take or withdraw the money and going to deposit into the account is not happen. It is in that particular account itself I can be able to transfer the money. Similar to this, in that the depositories, I am not going to get any physical certificate. There are digital certificates are easy to transfer, which happens and facilitates safekeeping of money, which is the assurance is given by the bank. Similar to this, the depositories are also safekeeping of the securities. And the services offered by the depositories. So what are the services are being provided by the depositories? So we'll see in this session. So in that thing, you need to understand the following services are provided by the depository to the beneficial owners through a depository participant. So normally what the depository are not involving directly to offer the service to the investor, whereas the depositories are providing service as prescribed by the depository participant to the depositories. So what are the services being provided by the depositories? Or opening of demat account is normally done by the depositories for all its investors who wants to make trade of securities in the digital platform. For them, they are opening the account. And dematerialization process is also done by the depositories. It means it is a process of converting the physical securities into a digital securities or into electronic securities. So the kind of process is initiated by the depositories. So that thing is the second major thing done by the depositories. But we can take almost 99.9% of those securities have already converted from the physical form or physical certificates into electronic certificates. The process is already completed, but even though if the people wants to make the digital certificate of their physical certificate, so the service is still being provided by the depositories. And the rematerialization, it means converting electronic securities into physical securities. It means electronic certificates of securities into a physical certificate. So that particular process is also done by the depository. The process we call it as, the service we call it as a rematerialization. So order of request is need to be given by the demat account holder, or we call it as a beneficial owner account holder can give the request to the depository through their depository participant for converting their balance of securities in the electronic form, which need to be converted into a digital form. We call it as rematerialization of securities. So it is a process will be taken. Again, those dematerialized securities or get the approval from the registrar. After that, the depositories are making a changes and it will be issued. The physical copy of certificates are issued through the registrar to the concerned investor will be given. With that, they have already given a RRF. It means remat request form has to be filled by the concerned beneficial owner account holder, need to be filled this for this conversion process. And maintaining records of securities held with the beneficial owners in the electronic form. So the records, how much number of securities are owned by the particular beneficial owner in his demat account, or the details are to be maintained by the depositories. So the depositories are providing a separate or a unique identification number through the beneficial owners. Once they are starting, once they have opened the account to the particular investor, they will be assigning the account number as similar to the bank account number. There are account numbers are given to the beneficial owner account holder. They might have the account number. With that, the account number, the securities, the quantities, everything are mapped to the particular person. So that the record keeping is also done by the depositories on behalf of the investors. And the settlement of trade by delivery or the receipt of securities from the BO accounts are done by the depositories. It is for the settlement of trade. It means if I have purchased the securities, so the purchased securities would be a transfer of ownership, and the transfer of value of money need to be transferred. So similar to this, if I have sold the securities in the market, redeemed the value, so that going to be transfer the name, whether the owner name or the transfer of property or the transfer of securities to be effected from one account to another account, and the settlement to be happen. So this particular process is also done by the depositories. The settlement of off-market transaction between the BOs, it means it is not comes under the stock exchanges. If it is like off-market transactions done by the beneficial owners are also entertained by the depositories. If they have like a physical copy of certificates, they wants to sell from one person to another person, they have already identified the investor to whom they are going to sell the particular security, so they are also ready to buy that. So that particular process is also executed. The conversion process is also done by the depositories. Receiving of electronic credit in respect of the securities are allotted by the issuer under the initial public offer or otherwise on behalf of the demat account holders is also done by the depositories. So electronic credit, it means receiving of securities. If the securities are allotted through an initial public offer, so those securities are brought, that should be stored in the demat account, that the process done by the depositories. And receiving non-cash corporate benefits, it is like in the form of allotment of bonus and right shares or any other non-cash related corporate benefits given by the issuer in that the electronic form or on behalf of its demat account holders are done by the depositories. So what are the non-cash corporate benefit? If it is like a cash corporate benefits are provided as like as a dividend, it is like a interest given for the debentures or comes under the category. But non-cash related items, it is like if the bonus shares are given, in spite of giving the cash dividend, if the company has decided to give the bonus shares, so that bonus shares, if you have one share, if they have given additional one share, whoever already having one share, additional one more share is given. It means if you have a 10 shares of that particular company, so you need to be entitled to receive additional 10 shares. So that will be received by the depositories and it will be electronically credited into your account. So that particular process is done by the depositories. And the second one, it is like right issue of shares. So the kind of rights are given to the existing shareholders to subscribe the new portion of shares available in the company, or new portion of capital available in the company. There is exclusive rights are given to the existing shareholders. So if you are participating or if you are subscribing the share from the particular company, so it is through the right issue. So you have already a demat account. Within the demat account, whatever the share you have subscribed are to be stored. So these two things are taken as a non-cash corporate benefits. Either it may be in the form of bonus shares or in the form of right issue. All the things are to be stored even for initial public offering. Also, if you have a demat account, you can give the demat account to the issuer. It will be automatically transferred or it will be credited. The securities are to be credited. The number of securities are to be credited in your demat account. And pledging of dematerialized securities and facilitating for the loan against the shares are also done by the depositories. So it is in that the form of electronic form. After freezing the account or after freezing the particular security, the kind of pledging, the kind of things are to be provided, the loans are to be provided, the process is initiated by the depositories. So if once you want to pledge these securities, you want to get the loan from the banks or financial institution, for that particular process, the purpose or like things are facilitated by the depositories. And freezing of demat account for debit or credit or both the things are to be done by the depositories. If you want to freeze, you yourself wants to freeze for the particular ISIN number, or you want to freeze for the debit, it means you are not allowed to sell the units. If you are freezing for the credit, it means you won't allowed to buy the particular security. So likewise, the kind of instructions you may give to your depositories, it is possible. And the next important topic is participants in depository system. So in that, the depository system or environment, who are all participating? The first one, the depository. The depository is a custodian of his clients. They are safeguarding the digital certificates, or they are safeguarding the digital copy of securities, or to be done by the depositories. And they are maintaining the records. There are a different sort of services is being provided by the depository. So the depository is a first participant in that, the system of depository. The second one, depository participants, who is called as agent of depository. So the depository cannot be able to render all sort of service to their client. So they advise the depository participants to do the service. So the depository participant, they registered themselves and to get the certificate for acting as a depository participant from the Securities Exchange Board of India, and they need to have a minimum net worth to be act as a depository participant. And there are beneficial owners. The beneficial owners are the real owners of the securities who is having a demat account which is registered with the depository participant. And the issuer is a company with the issue of securities, which issues the securities to the beneficial owners. Are the four major entities which is required for the depository system. And you need to know in further about the depository participant. The depository participant is an agent of the depository through which it interfaces with the investors and provide the depository services. So normally the depository participants who make the discussion with the investors and understand their requirements, and that will be communicated to the depository for further approval. Further, the service will be provided by the depository. For that, depository is called as an agent for this particular purpose. And who may be the depository participant? who are all eligible to become a depository participant. So you need to understand the public financial institutions, scheduled commercial banks, foreign banks operating in India, with the approval of Reserve Bank of India, they can apply for depository participant license, and state financial corporations, custodians, stockbrokers, clearing corporations, clearing houses, non-banking financial companies, and register to an issue or the share transfer agent complying with the requirements as prescribed by the Securities Exchange Board of India can register as depository participant. And with respect to the depository participants can register with the depository to act or to exercise their duties. So in India, you can take, there are two depositories are there in India. They are National Securities Depository Limited and Central Depository Services India Limited are the two major depositories. With that, there are registered depository participants as on 23rd December 2020 in National Securities Depository Limited. There are about 282 depository participants are registered. Similar to this, you can take the CSDL. It is registered depository participant as on 23rd December 2020 in Central Depository Service India Limited is 615 depository participants. Together you can take, there are about 897 depository participants are there in India. There are few depository participants. Hope you all remember these depository participants. The depository participants, as in the previous thing itself, there are eligibility. They may be a commercial bank or maybe a non-banking financial company or maybe a registrar or share transfer agents. There may be public sector banks or even a foreign banks, but they located or operating in India with the approval of Reserve Bank of India, they can be act as a depository participant. So these are the basic categories, the criteria in which those companies can be act as a depository participant. You can take few of the depository participants like Aditya Birla Money Limited. They are also doing the stockbroking and other related services. Along with this, they are also be act as a depository participant. Bank of Baroda, Bank of India, ICICI Bank Limited, and IDBI Capital Market and Securities Limited. With that, they are doing this particular process. Additional thing that they have taken as a depository participants, and IIFL Securities Limited. These are few known companies which are around us. We can be able to understand about the depository participants. The process of dematerialization. So the major work done by the depository is about conversion of physical certificate into digital certificate or even digital certificate into a physical certificate. So the process is done by the depository. With that, the request given by the investor is a base. So in that, you need to understand the process of dematerialization. So what is the procedure which involved for conversion of physical certificate into a digital certificate or physical form of security into a digital security or electronic security. So what is the procedure? It is the first one, surrender of certificates for dematerialization to your DP. It is a depository participant. You need to submit all your physical copy of certificates. And the second one, the depository participant is going to intimate to the depository regarding the request through the system. So whatever the request given by the investor along with the physical copy of certificates have been received by the depository participant. Whatever the details are mentioned in the particular demat request form is going to be conveyed to the depositories through the system. and the depository participant submits a certificates to the registrar of the issuer company. So they are going to send us the copy of physical certificate which has been received from the investor is going to be forwarded to the registrar of the company and initiating that and insisting that it is going to be converted into the electronic form. So there should be a number, there should be all those securities are going to be converted through the depository. The intimation along with the certificate are going to be surrendered to the registrar of the concerned issuer. The company who issued the certificate, who has issued the physical copy of certificate to the investor in that particular company. They have a register. To the registrar we have sent the physical copy of certificate. The registrar confirms the dematerialization request from the depository. At the same time, the depository also sent the approval to the registrar for the further conversion into the dematerialization. After dematerializing the certificate, the registrar updates the account and informs the depository regarding the completion of dematerialization process. Will be updated to the depository directly by the registrar of the issuing company. So they going to update from their account. So who have initiated that particular process, whether that particular beneficial owner is a real owner. So they are verifying the credential. After that, the approval is given by the registrar to the depository. So the depository is confirming the dematerialization request. Again, it is sent to the registrar. The depository updates its account and inform to the depository participant whether it is confirmed or not confirmed, whether it is converted into the dematerialized form or not converted. The kind of information is communicated to the depository participant. So the depository participant is updating into the demat account of the investors. So this is a process which normally followed for the conversion of dematerialization from the form of physical certificate. And in that particular form, in that particular process, there is a role going to be performed by the registrar and transfer agent of the issuing company. Take a role of registrar and transfer agent, RTA. The registrar and transfer agent act as an agent. They are an intermediary between the issuer and the depositories. So basically what they are doing, they are involving the process of transfer of securities. They are involving with the process of dispatching of certificate to the investors. They are updating the information related to the investors. All those processes in which the registrar and transfer agents are involving. Also, the registrar and transfer agents are helping out the investors in the process of dematerialization, rematerialization and other corporate actions. It is like through initial public offering, it means the allocation of shares to the investors. So the process is also taken care by the registrar and transfer agent, or through the right issue or the preferential allotment or a private placement, the kind of different actions, bonus shares, the kind of different actions, the transfer of ownership, the transfer of securities, enabling the investors to access or to get updated the information into the company record, the kind of things processed by the registrar and transfer agent. So in this, the process you need to know about rematerialization. The depositories who is mainly started for the purpose of converting the physical form of certificate into a digital form of certificate, there are a number of reasons are behind that. The kind of certificates or having a kind of some bad credential or the kind of fraudulent people may use or evade the investors. For that they have printed their own certificates and the certificates are not able to track, the kind of systems are not followed properly in the Indian stock market. For that, the particular reason, the government is initiated and they bring up a concept of dematerialization into a market. And also the significant importance is also given for converting the digital form of certificates into a physical form of certificate as requested by the investors. So whoever requesting for the conversion of digital certificate into a physical certificate, they need to submit a RRF, which we call it as rematerialization request form. It's a remat request form. Need to submit. It means if one who wishes to get back their securities in the physical form, they need to fill the remat request form and request his depository participant for rematerialization of their balances in his securities account. They can be able to redrive, they can able to convert into the remat or the physical form of certificates. It is possible. So there are a process is followed for conversion of physical certificate from the digital certificate. So the process are make a request for the rematerialization. Depository participant intimates the depository regarding the request through the system. With the same thing what done in that the demat request, the same thing we need to do in the remat request also. Need to inform the depository by the depository participant. Depository confirms the rematerialization request to the registrar, and the registrar update the accounts and print the certificates, and the depositories update the accounts and download the details to the depository participant, and the registrar dispatches the certificate to the investors. So this is a process involved in the rematerialization. Next important participant in the depository system is an issuer. Issuer means entity such as a corporate or a state or a central government organization issuing a securities, which can be held by depositories in electronic form. So who is going to issue the securities? Those securities are converted into the electronic form by the depositories. So who is called it as an issuer. Beneficial owner. The next important entity in the depository system. Beneficial owner is who is an investor in the market who have opened the account with the depository. He has not directly opened the account with the depository. Through the depository participant, they have opened the account. So the person who is called it as a beneficial owner, for his benefit, for in their favor, the security has been transferred. It means to utilize the service offered by the depository, any person having the investment in any security or intending to invest in securities needs to a demat account. So the holder of such demat account who is called it as beneficial owners. So basically what it is required for buying and selling of securities in the market, for the investors it is required the demat account. So without demat account they can't be able to sell the securities or buy the securities. The transactions may not be happen. If maybe happen in the off market, but it may not be happen through the stock exchanges. It is not possible without the demat account. So what those who have the demat account, who is called it as a beneficial owner, they can be able to trade, they can be enter into the contract, they can be able to buy the securities, sell the securities on behalf of their favor, that the depositories are involving the process for the changing of ownership, transfer of ownership, all those things, and the settlement process, everything the depository will be helping out for the beneficial owners. And the next important topic is procedure to open the demat account. So what is the normal procedure has been adopted and the procedures are given by the depository. So those procedures are followed by the depository participants in open up the demat account. It is also complying the regulations of Securities Exchange Board of India and know your client norms. Everything is fulfilled by this particular regulation for opening the demat account. So for opening of demat account, it is decide on a depository participant which any authorized bank or a financial institution or a broker with investor can open a demat account with them. The choice of depository participant should ideally depends on the brokerage charges, annual charges and leverage provided by the depository participant. So based on that, the investor may select the depository participants. Normally what now everyone is offering a kind of the demat account with a zero balance. You need not to pay any charges like that. They have given an account to the investors. So likewise, who are all giving an offer the kind of reduced charges, reduced brokerage cost collected by the depository participant in which they are going to open the account. Submit a duly filled account opening form and know your client form. Along with this, investor needs to attach a copies of their PAN card, permanent account number card, residence proof and identification proof, and their passport sized photograph needs to be submitted to the depository participant for opening of account. And they need to carry the original copies of all relevant documents for the verification purpose by the investors, and also needs to give the cancelled check for the dividend purpose to the bank account. So that need to be given. So the cancelled check leaf also received by the depository participants for direct remittance or direct transfer of funds or settlement, and that everything they will be using that particular account. Need to sign an agreement that will be mentioning all the rules and regulations and the rights associated with the holding of demat account. It will be signed by an authorized person, and the copy is also given to the investors. When the account is opened, the investor will receive a unique client ID from their depository participant. This will be helps the investors to get access about the demat account. Through online they can be able to open, they can directly buy the shares, sell the shares in the market. So it is possible with the investors through online they can be able to access if they have a customer ID and other credentials to access their demat account. The investor will also given an instruction slip by the depository participant which will be used for the depository services like transferring of shares, purchasing of shares. For that the particular purpose they can use the deposit instruction slips. So that instruction slip will be the record from the side of investors. What are the shares or what are the securities have been transferred, what are the securities have been purchased, the kind of information they can be recollect from their instruction slip itself. This is what we call it as delivery instruction slip, through which they can be do this particular process. So these are the things in which the demat account have been opened. The demat account is basically opened by the investor with the depository participant based on some criteria, as it is already mentioned. It is like a brokerage charges, it is like the annual maintenance charges which is collected by the depository participants. It is like other leverages position is given by the depository participant through which they can select the particular depository participant for maintaining their demat account. Thank you.